Hi, my name's Jim Hemphill. I'm a features writer for IndieWire, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Craft Roundtable for Cinematography. Very excited. I've got cinematographers of some of my favorite movies of the year here. We've got Adolfo Veloso, who shot Train Dreams, Michael Bauman from One Battle After Another, William Rexer from The Testament of Anne Lee, and Malik Hassan Saeed, who shot After the Hunt. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You know, I was looking at these movies, and they're all so different, but one of the things they all have in common is they're all very character driven, and in all of them you find like a great visual language for expressing character. And I'm curious, for example, Adolfo, what kinds of conversations did you have with the director about finding a visual language to sort of express the main character's state of mind? Because he doesn't talk very much. It's a very, very internal movie.
Yeah, we really wanted it to feel like you're watching someone's memories, almost like you found that box full of pictures and you're trying to piece those pictures together and they're kind of out of order and you don't know exactly if that's what actually happened or if they just posed for that picture. The same way you have your own memories that you weren't sure if that's what really happened or if you just remember it that way. So we really talked a lot about it, and then we came to the aspect ratio, shooting 3:2, which is basically still images aspect ratio. So we thought that maybe that could connect to the audience in a way that it feels like you're watching your own pictures on your phone or your old family photos. We also talk a lot about natural light and how to make it feel, even though it's a period piece, connectable to the audience.
It's all going by so fast.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, what you're saying about a period piece and still having it be immediate leads me to a question for you, William, because Testament of Anne Lee, I feel like it's kind of an incredible movie in that it feels like you're just dropped in the middle of this world where there were no cameras and there was no technology, and you're somehow sort of catching it on the fly. So you have that same combination of it being period accurate but immediate. And I'm wondering if that was something that was important to you and that you discussed with the director.
The camera is an active participant. The camera really is a believer in Anne and a follower. So it's constantly engaging, and that's what being really present, and that was really important to us. And Mona and I talked about that in terms of the overall look. We didn't want it to ever feel like a television show or a contemporary movie. So we looked at Baroque paintings, and we looked at stuff that's outside of that world and outside of normal cinema, and used that as sort of our references. So the combination of the Baroque style and the immediacy of being an active participant, those are the two things we talked about wanting to play with.
Well, now speaking of visual references, Malik, I'm curious to hear what kinds of conversations you had with Luca on After the Hunt about visual references and influences, because I know both of you guys, I know from having talked to you before, are like super cinephiles and probably have a lot of common references in terms of the movies you love. So what were some of the films and filmmakers that you were talking about with him that you saw as possible inspiration or reference points for After
Well,
the
there were two references that he gave me, which I was very excited about. I mean, the whole movie's about restraint, and I think that the references themselves were restrained. And it's Sven Nykvist and Ingmar Bergman, 1961 to 1972, and then Gordon Willis, from 1977 to 1988. And we just functioned inside of that space. So wanted the film to feel like it came out of the period of Gordon Willis, but with the relationship that is created by way of the mise-en-scene with Ingmar Bergman and Sven Nykvist, because it's a lot about faces and kind of the emotional ambiguity that's created, and kind of like of emotional voyeurism, like that was just there as we're taking this ride with these characters. Gordon Willis has always been a North Star for me, so that was okay. I love that I get to revisit Gordon Willis, yes, yeah. And of course Harris is Gordon Willis adjacent. You know what I mean? Like, so it was Harris and Gordon Willis for me, and then Sven Nykvist, I was able to take a deeper dive on him. I mean, he's always in the pantheon, but I spent more time with him and Ingmar Bergman, and that was a really exciting journey. Yeah, so it was The Silence and Persona were probably the two seminal pieces with them that connect to our film.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear you say that about Ingmar Bergman and Sven Nykvist because I'm a huge Bergman fan, and that was when I saw your movie, I did think a lot about, in terms of the close-ups and the faces, there was something very reminiscent. The power of it was very similar to Bergman. And also, somebody else I thought about watching the movie was, and maybe it's just the academic setting, made me think about Virginia Woolf, but also
yes.
Carnal Knowledge. And it just was interesting because obviously Julia Roberts worked with Mike Nichols, and there's this
Yes.
sort of Mike Nichols inflected thing in the visual language too.
Yes, he did. That wasn't mentioned, but I know that the writer Nora, those were references for her as she was writing the script.
It's the right thing to do, isn't it? To tell someone and, given your history.
What does that mean, my history?
Now, Michael, you've been working with Paul Thomas Anderson on a few films now. With this one, I mean, I don't even know where you get started. It's such a epic undertaking. What are the first conversations he has with you? I mean, I know he's been in some way or another thinking about and writing this movie for decades. So when did you first hear about it, and what did he first tell you?
I think it was really it kind of comes out in drips and drabs. He started talking a bit about it around when we were even doing Licorice Pizza, of just this is kind of what, it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot of details, but kind of working with him, and you're seeing some of the source material he's using, and you can kind of see which direction he's going, and so he's just piles of books and other references that were kind of a lot of the building blocks for the film. When we got into really talking more visuals about it, it was a lot about 70s cinema. It was a lot about French Connection. That was definitely our guiding light. And Last Detail, a lot of these kind of movies of that period and that grittiness of what that energy. It wasn't just so much the look, but it was just the energy of some of those movies, especially French Connection, and trying to capture moments as they happened. And that was really a lot of kind of where the conversation started. And then we just did a lot of tests just to see with this division format how we could achieve some of those goals and what worked, what didn't. And, that's the great thing about testing. You can fall on your face and good things come from that.
Well, you get at something that I love about that movie, which it feels like you're catching life on the fly, but there's also a very precise visual design to everything. And I'm curious to hear from all of you about how you kind of navigate that balance. Where's the line between how much you come in with a preset plan and how much you leave yourself open to responding on the day and to things that might come up in the moment?
There was a lot of okay, this is the space we're going to be in. And it was more about lighting spaces and then picking up the moments as they'd happen. Because a lot of what was going on with the casting too in the film was there was a lot of folks in there who were not actors, or didn't come from the kind of background that a lot of the principals did. There were unique qualities about them that you'd want to make sure you could capture. And that just involved okay, let's get an environment where we're lighting a space and they can interact and capture that kind of natural energy that was going on. So that for us was a lot of just being open enough in how we were approaching it to roll with whatever was going to come down the pipe.
We were sort of the opposite because we only had 34 days to accomplish everything. So there's not a frame that we hadn't pre-visualized with Artemis going through and saying, okay, this is what our world's going to be. But we lit very similarly, where we lit environmentally and source motivated by candles or daylight or moonlight. So it gives that feeling of that, but everything was precise. We knew every one of the dance sequences, everything was completely planned out in advance.
Did you storyboard or?
We didn't storyboard. We really did it with Artemis. We did a shot list in New York, and all the dances we would go and rehearse in New York and plan them. And then every location scout we would go, and Mona would play all the parts, and I would really take that frame because we knew on the day, 30 some odd days in 4 countries, there wasn't time to sort of wing it.
Yeah. Well, we did the opposite. Well, similarly to lighting the rooms, I love what Harris said, when someone says something that concretizes an idea that you have, that is the truth, when he says he lights the room, which I love. That's how we approach it, because Luca doesn't storyboard, he doesn't shot list, and he'll change day to day. And so the tech scout was complete. We didn't shoot a single thing we shot on the tech scout. But one great thing about Luca, which is he's at mastery, I think flow state level, because he edits and he shoots the edit. He doesn't cover anything. He shoots the edit. He's a one take guy, and we have amazing actors who nail. Michael and Julia, killed it on one take. Andrew would want a second take or third take, and he would have to catch up. I felt it was like Kyrie, and like a young phenom, you know what I mean? Like Kyrie's going to slow motion, and the phenom just got to keep up, When I was younger, it would have been daunting, but I actually found it very refreshing, especially coming out of doing a lot of commercials where the storyboards just get stale, and because he was reacting to the performances. He was just intuitively reacting to what the performance in the rehearsal was giving him. And then we had to follow him in that way. And so it was a fun exercise to do it like that.
The film doesn't feel that way. The film feels.
It feels very. Someone said it feels. A really good friend of mine who knows me intimately, creatively, says it was different from me. He said it felt brutalist, but I think it's just where we are in our evolution that it feels like that. But we just played in the moment, which was fun. It was a fun exercise,
Yeah, ours was a bit of both. I think we planned a lot and we created a lot of rules, visual language rules. And we had to plan a lot because we were using only natural light. So we actually had to plan a lot with all departments to be able to be in the right places at the right time. But also always with our eyes open to whatever was happening. And because we were working that way on actual locations, the sets were all built on location, we had planned something to be inside and then just we would look outside and, oh my God, look at that. It's something amazing is happening outside. Or even like the scene is not working here. Let's just go outside and see if that works better. So we had a lot of improvisation on that part too. Like just not only within the spaces, but also within the action. Like the actors would always bring ideas. And Clint, I think I learned that a lot with him. Like he's always really sure of what he wants, but he's so open and he's always kind of embracing and encouraging people to bring something different. We constantly, whenever like shooting with kids especially or animals, we would just embrace what they gave us. So it was a bit of planning a lot to be able to improvise. Yeah.
But I guess it's because you're on location, you have to plan.
Totally.
Yeah, and we were on stage, so I guess that makes a big difference, to be able to do that. And maybe that's why he wanted to shoot on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, you could control what time of day,
exactly,
weather.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we couldn't, but because we didn't have lights, that gave us also the flexibility to move around.
Right.
Because then you didn't have like a whole set of lights outside or
that's great. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's crazy.
It's cool.
Well, what you were saying about having to be in close collaboration with other departments, I mean, that's something else that struck me about all of these movies is they all feel like movies where all the departments were in a very harmonious relationship. I was wondering if you could all talk a little bit about collaborating with the other department heads.
We worked as a team. We lived together in Hungary. We would have meals and be looking at swatches together at 11 o'clock at night. We did the old style of going every night and watching dailies together even too. So
Incredible.
we would have dinner even if it was 11 o'clock at night, and the lab would stay open for us and project our dailies, and we would drink wine, look at things that are coming up in 2 weeks. So
That's beautiful.
there was so much planning and living together and sharing, and our costume designer, our production designer, myself and Mona, it was an endless dialogue, and it really worked out really well because of that. I do think that all of our projects had incredible leadership, and Mona's leadership was insane. She just led with so much passion and so much endless energy that it's infectious. And I'm sure PT is the same way. And it's just like, I think we all benefited from that type of leadership, which then takes all the departments and truly makes it infectious,
Yes.
I think the way you just said, I was going to say we also did film dailies every day, and because the communication was challenging at times because we were in so many different cities, and a lot of times like Flo, who's the production designer, would be like at the other end of the state or in El Paso, and we're stuck in Eureka or some other place. They had to set up a projection system that would just cart around the different hotels we were all staying at, because we were all kind of like in the similar vein. Everyone was all together. 2 Super 35 projectors and a VistaVision projector, and you're just watching that every night. But it's really great for just everybody taking a breather, looking at the footage. A great opportunity for everyone just to kind of reflect on the work and just get some distance from it, but then just keep soldiering on.
Do you guys feel bad watching dailies? Because for me, it's so nerve-wracking. I feel like everybody's judging our work because everybody's seen everybody else's work, but then suddenly this is a time for people to judge our work, and you're just there like hoping that people don't.
I mean, what's great about like usually when they said when Paul sets up Daly's room, there's very specific requirements. One of it includes an incredible bar. So that's always a good way to set the tone. But then also, he's always playing with the music. So like Johnny Greenwood is sending score ideas over, and so he'd be playing that at times and seeing how that fits with.
That's incredible.
And so you'd be in there, and it was never like, all right, just roll it and we'll just be quiet. It was always like there's something cranking. It's kind of like almost like a live DJ session going on, as you're watching the footage, which loosens the mood a bit.
We had that both on set. Daniel Bloomberg, our composer, was on set playing even for dramatic scenes while we're rehearsing.
Oh, really?
What was going to become the story.
That's amazing.
So everybody's getting in that mind. And
it's
then
like Dogma 95.
It was really fantastic. He's in the movie as an actor as well. So but he's always sitting there with a keyboard playing. And then in Daly's the same thing. He would be up there and he'd be playing. So it's, we are circus freaks. And when the circus is, when you have a good ringmaster,
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Speaking, I actually have a question about the scene with Benicio del Toro when they're going through the space. Did you guys have the music? Because the music is so...
That roof part?
At least the score was so harmonious with like the what's happening in the scene.
Yeah.
Did you guys have it beforehand or you scored it later?
I think he definitely has it when we're watching dailies. Yeah. And that scene was an interesting one because that was like, so they shot that in El Paso on the second floor of an abandoned building. Mm-hmm. And the reason we were there is because we wanted to look out these windows and, be able to tie in the exterior and the interior around the second floor. So that entire set, Flo designed it, multiple apartments, the hallway, all that, but it was all assembled and they had to build it in LA, stand it up and then ship it out to El Paso. And Andrew Kahn, the art director, because it was a historic building, didn't know if he could remove the windows. So he had two guys go to Home Depot and cut a 4-foot by 9-foot section of wood and see if they could navigate it up the stairs. So he knew how big the set pieces could be built. So he could definitely assemble it on site.
Yeah.
I love that sequence.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
The music, the score is incredible.
The Benicio sections, is just and the integration of all the characters working in the different the jails and the restaurants. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. And it was always this mix of like actors, professional actors, and folks who are non-professional. Like for example, in the jail, when he's getting interviewed by the woman, and she's like, "Did you take your diabetes medication?" No, and she just worked there. She wasn't, and it was just like, she just started hitting it out of the park.
Yeah.
And it was like, there was a lot of that in the film. Even the scene where when Avante, the bounty hunter, takes Willa to the camp to drop her off. Yeah. He had to cast somebody else. That guy drove the picture car vehicle and had been with us for the whole thing. And then Paul's like, you know what? I think you'd be better. And the guy's like, wait a minute, what? You want me to act? And I just remember the day he started, he was just like, okay, it's going to be fine, man. It's going to be fine. Just do it.
That's so funny because, that guy, when I saw the movie, I was thinking, like, where did Paul Thomas Anderson find this guy? He's great. Like, why haven't I seen him before and anything?
Yeah.
I'm wondering for all of you, how you see your role in terms of creating an environment on set that's going to get the most out of the actors or make them the most comfortable. Like, is that something that you guys think about and consider? Or is it like, no, that's the director's job?
For me, 100%. Like, this is really scary for me. Like, being in front of the camera is just like, I don't understand how they do it. So I'm always trying to make it easier on them, even though they might not find it hard because they do their jobs amazingly. But I always imagine that if I was in that spot, I would rather have a smaller footprint around me. So I'm always trying to work in a way that I don't have a bunch of stuff around them, have a kind of an empty set somehow. It's just a camera, me there sometimes. I think it's one of the good things about working with natural light. You don't have a lot of stands around them. They are like on our movie, they're pretending they are living in the 1920s and they are around an actual campfire, not around LED lights that are flickering like a campfire. And also to allow them some flexibility. Clint is a director that really loves to improvise and allow them to improvise. So I feel like it kind of all goes the same route. And that was amazing because so many, I think, beautiful moments in the movie came from these little pieces that we just improvised. So I feel like for me, just because of the way I react to being in front of the camera, I'm always trying to avoid that for them too.
I think we all want to just work in a good energy space, and not have it be toxic. For me, it's always important for the energy around me and what I can manage to be good. And my team, like, we function in an unspoken way. Because I think it always starts at the top. And it was important from Julia, from the beginning. She had us come to her house to do the hair and makeup test, come to San Francisco. We rented out a space. And they did the rehearsals at the same time with the actors. And she cooked and had everybody on the couches with the dogs. And Andrew said it later, like, that set the tone for the energy on set. And she's very maternal and very nurturing. And she created a nurturing space because they knew they were going to have tough material to engage between actors, and it was infectious with us. And so I feel like it created a really good vibe and energy on set. And to me, that's, in my opinion, those things get recorded on film. Like, the energy of the space gets recorded on the film. The space itself, like, I think it was one of Ozu's cinematographers believed that whoever touched the camera, because it's metal, because film is metal, their energy gets on the film. But I just really do feel like the energy gets recorded. And so we had that on in our space. And it allowed us to be with Luca, to be able to channel in the moment, to, like, react creatively. We needed that. We needed to be free. By way of the producers, was I have to give them credit. They allowed us, they gave us a space to do that, so we can say, okay, this is how I'm reacting to this right now. We just have to do it, even if it meant we take a little longer to do it, to honor the truth of the moment.
I think we, as the cinematographers, have a huge responsibility in setting that and creating that space that you're talking about, and if we're not prepared, if we're haphazard, if we're coming in with bad energy or bad mood or bringing stuff to it, or if we employ people around us who are doing that and don't stop it early, it really can contaminate a set very, very quickly. With Ann Lee, I was blessed with both Mona and Amanda. I mean, Amanda, after, a dance sequence, the one where she's giving birth, 9, 10 takes of that, and she's exhausted. And we said, we need one more. And then she turns to us and says, okay, but you have to do this for me as a favor. And she whispers in my ear. I go talk to the sound recordist. She does one more of these takes, and this is an intense dance sequence. And it's Hungary, and it's like 100 degrees in the space. Finish, and all of a sudden this dance party music comes on, because that's what she wanted, and she turns the whole thing into a dance party.
Incredible.
And gets now that's for 20 awesome. Minutes has every crew member out there dancing, and she's dancing with everybody. She knew that all those other dancers needed a release.
Yeah.
She needed a release. The crew needed to be rewarded.
That's incredible.
And that type of leadership, and setting energy.
Yeah.
And then we have the responsibility to protect that.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Love it. Love that.
No, totally. I think it is about that, just like creating a space that people can feel comfortable to work in. I mean, and it does start with the top, just like you said about Julia. I mean, Leo was like, on this thing, he was, Paul really wanted it to be like an indie movie. But, of course, he didn't really write that kind of a film. So it's like, but he was all about, like, again, I think it's because he felt if we bring in the machinery of, like, what that kind of production would be, it's not going to be the energy that he's looking for. And I mean, he even came to me at one point and he was like, hey, what do you think? He goes on eBay and he buys 3 of those little Todalite kits. And he's like, hey, what do you think if we lit the movie with this? And I'm like, and I'm like, okay, so what's he saying by this? Because obviously, that stuff was like, I mean, we've all worked with that stuff. And it's like, whoa. And the cast was on board with it. I mean, like, normally it's like, some of the caliber of the stars would give like a big footprint. And, everyone was like, we're in small trucks, the cast was like in little like vans, Sprinter vans, and they just hang out and be ready. I mean, I can't, the number of times I walked by Sean Penn asleep in his truck with his feet up on the thing was like no big deal. And that's how he would just hang and then he'd just be ready and they just pop out and do it. And that kind of allowed us to maintain that kind of energy. And I think when it starts from there, and then it just kind of, like you said, it infuses into the set. Yeah. And everybody just rolls with it.
Yeah.
How do you feel that the VistaVision affected in terms of the noise? And...
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, look, I mean, it's that's the thing. You're trying to take this format that has its own limitations, I guess, or not limitations, just peculiarities to it. And the noise is a big thing. And it was like, definitely when we did tests at first, it was like, all of us were like, whoa. Certainly some scenes in the film that we shot Super 35, and that was mainly because in Vista, because you're using twice as much film, you only got 4 minutes to take, and a lot of it was also about supporting the improvisation that was happening. Mm-hmm. And so there are certain scenes that we'd roll Super 35 because you could get an 11-minute take out of a mag, which was really critical for some of the performances. And he doesn't shoot stage really, so Paul doesn't like stages. He likes practical locations. So trying to jam the camera in some of these things, it was an adjustment. I'll put it that way. I mean, the thing is noisy.
And you shot dialogues always with the camera in
Yeah,
general?
sometimes we do it with both systems, depending on what it was. Yeah, I was just trying to find the balance of what would work, and then also working with the post sound guys on like what they could get away with, because they can, you know, as we all know, they can perform some incredible magic. You know,
But
so.
you didn't sacrifice energy or movement in that movie with the bulky camera. You still have, you know, it really feels free.
Yeah, I think it was just like to what you said earlier, just about building the right team. When you have a team that's down with the plan and is like, all right, let's do it, and open to it, because like, you know, the camera department was like, every other department was like, don't bring anything, except the camera truck was packed. Because, you know, you got all the film, the 2 camera systems, and he loves lenses. It's, you know, so you've got like ton of glass and all this, and it was just, yeah, it was a stressor for that department, you know.
Well, I can honestly say I think the work all 4 of you did this year was just amazing. I love the cinematography in all of these movies, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk with me about it. So
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.